There's a moment when you arrive home, and it's like your body walks in before your mind does. You put your keys down, maybe you open your phone, maybe stand in the kitchen staring at the same spot on the counter. 10 minutes pass. You're there, but not really there. The room is quiet, but inside you it's foggy and far away. Your partner says something from the living room, you answer on autopilot, and later you barely remember what either of you said. You scroll through messages, reply with a few words, close the app, open it again without thinking. Your body is moving, your eyes are looking, you're doing things, but it feels as if someone else is slightly piloting you, while the deeper part of you waits in the background. Sometimes it happens in the car. You drive a familiar route and suddenly you're already at your exit, with only a vague sense of how you got there. You didn't crash, you followed the rules, but your consciousness was somewhere softer, blurred, almost like a dream. Or you're sitting in a meeting, nodding, taking notes, but inside you're drifting off to old conversations, worries, memories, fantasies. No one can see it from the outside, yet you feel that strange distance between you and the moment you're living. It doesn't look dramatic. You're not hypnotized on a stage or chanting in a temple. It happens quietly, in supermarkets, on public transport, in the shower, lying in bed with the lights off. Life keeps moving, but part of you keeps slipping into these in-between states, half here, half somewhere else. And over time, this quiet pattern becomes a kind of second life. On the surface, you're functioning, answering emails, having conversations, laughing at jokes, doing what's expected. But underneath, long stretches of your day feel blurred, like you're watching yourself from a few steps behind. In romantic relationships, it might show up when conflict appears. Your partner's tone changes, a difficult topic comes up, and instead of feeling fully present, you feel your awareness tilt. You hear them speaking, but their words feel slightly delayed, as if coming through what? You say whatever keeps the peace, you nod, you agree, but later you can't quite remember what you promised or what you truly felt. Your body might feel heavy, your chest dull, like you're wrapped in cotton. At work, maybe in the middle of a long Zoom call, you notice that your eyes are locked on the screen, but your mind has slipped under. You're imagining quitting, replaying an argument from 3 years ago, or drifting into an elaborate fantasy where everything finally makes sense. Someone says your name and you snap back, smile, answer, sound coherent. Outside, you look professional. Inside, it feels like you visit a different world and return before anyone notices. With family, this pattern can be even older. Sitting at a dinner table, listening to familiar dynamics, the same complaints, the same jokes. You feel your awareness float away. Maybe you chew slower. Maybe you stare at your plate. Maybe you feel as if you're watching a movie you've seen 1,000 times. You play your role, you say your lines, but it's as if the real you is sitting a few meters behind your own chair, quietly observing. And in your alone time, this pattern can become the default. You lie on the couch, the TV is on, your phone is in your hand, multiple tabs open on your laptop. The room is full of sound, yet inside there's a strange emptiness, a trance made of noise and distraction. Your inner dialogue is not clear thinking, it's drifting, looping, half-formed thoughts that never fully land. You might feel both tired and wired, comforted and restless, as if your consciousness can't decide whether to wake up or sink deeper into the fog. You might not have words for it. You might just call it zoning out, spacing out, being on autopilot. But somewhere in you there's a quiet question. Why do I live so many moments half asleep? For many people, this didn't start in adulthood. Somewhere in childhood, a younger version of you started learning how to leave the room without physically going anywhere. A girl grows up in a house where emotions are loud but unsafe. Adults shout, slam doors, or withdraw into icy silence. No one explains what's happening. She learns that if she stays fully present, the fear is too sharp, the confusion too painful, so she starts to drift inside herself. She stares at a spot on the wall. She focuses on the pattern of the carpet. She imagines being in another house, another family. Her body stays at the table, but a part of her slips into a private, altered state where she feels less. A boy is told again and again, stop overreacting, don't be so sensitive, just get over it. Every intense feeling becomes something he's supposed to shut down. He can't make the emotion disappear, so he learns to step away from it. He stares at his video game, at his homework, at his phone.
On the outside, he looks calm, maybe even lazy or uninterested. On the inside, his awareness pulls back from his own body because that's the only way to keep functioning without exploding or crying. In many families, there are unspoken rules. Don't talk about certain topics. Don't question the adults. Don't show that you're scared, confused, or angry. Children in these environments often find subtle ways to escape. They daydream, they dissociate, they quietly enter a trance-like focus on cartoons, books, screens, or their own imagination. Culture plays a role too. Some cultures glorify productivity and numbing. You're praised for pushing through exhaustion, ignoring your body, living on autopilot. Other cultures idealize extreme spiritual states without explaining how to stay grounded. You might hear stories of mystical experiences, but not much about emotional safety and integration. Over time, the nervous system learns something important. When reality feels too much, it can blur the edges. Psychologically, this is related to dissociation, the way our mind can detach from the full intensity of the present moment when it feels overwhelmed or unsafe. You don't need to use that word in daily life. You just feel that you go somewhere else. Trance states and altered consciousness are not only about rituals or hypnosis, they're also ordinary protective patterns. Your attention narrows or drifts. Your sense of time changes. Your body may feel distant or overly heavy. Your mind may become strangely quiet or filled with images and thoughts that don't fully feel like you chose them. In healthy contexts, altered states
can be meaningful. Deep meditation, creative flow, ecstatic experiences. But for many people, the most common trance is the quiet, numb, half-awake state they learned in childhood and never realized they were still using as adults. So how does this show up in your life now? At work, the consequences can be subtle but painful. Imagine you're in a tense meeting. Your boss criticizes a project you worked hard on. As the pressure rises, your awareness starts to pull back. You hear their words, but they sound distant. Your mind goes fuzzy, your chest feels hollow, maybe your hands get cold. Instead of speaking up or asking questions, you nod and say, "Okay, sure." Later, you're frustrated with yourself. Why didn't I say anything? Why do I shut down like that? In workplace conflict, trance states can look like staring at the screen while your mind replays the argument again and again, feeling frozen when you need to answer a difficult email, getting hyper-focused on tiny tasks to avoid thinking about the bigger emotional problem. On the outside, you're busy. On the inside, you're drifting in a mental fog created to protect you from feeling too much at once. In romantic relationships, altered states can create distance even when you love someone deeply. Maybe during an argument, instead of yelling, you go blank. Your partner says, "Talk to me, tell me what you feel," but you honestly don't know. Your mind is half floating above the room. You're aware of the tension, but can't access your own emotions. Afterwards, they might say, "You're so distant, you don't care," while inside you feel guilty and misunderstood. It's not that you don't care, it's that your system has slipped into an old trance pattern to stay safe. In family dynamics, especially with parents or older relatives, you might find yourself sliding into these states almost automatically. You visit, and without thinking, you become the quiet child again. You nod along, stay polite, and notice that your real opinions retreat far into the background. You drive home with a strange emptiness, wondering, why do I feel so drained? I didn't even do anything. In friendships, it can show up as zoning out.
In group settings, everyone is laughing, talking quickly, sharing stories. You smile, but your awareness keeps drifting away, like a camera pulling back from the scene. You leave feeling both included and somehow invisible, as if your real self never fully stepped into the room. And then there's your inner dialogue. Altered consciousness doesn't always feel like a blank state. It can also be a trance of overthinking. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, your body heavy, your mind looping through the same fears. Time becomes strange. 20 minutes can feel like 5, or 5 can feel like an hour. You might feel detached from your body, as if you're watching your own life from a distance, trapped in repetitive mental scenes. There are obvious signs: sudden shutdown in conflict, feeling like you're moving through molasses, struggling to remember parts of conversations, and subtle signs: a quiet guilt for not being fully there with people you love, a sense of fakeness, like you're acting a role, a constant low-level tension in the body, but no clear story attached to it. At some point, the question appears,
Why do I keep doing this? Why does this particular tone of voice, this topic, this situation make me disappear inside myself? The cost of staying stuck in these trance states is real. You might feel exhausted from always half escaping your own life. Relationships can feel shallow or confusing because people don't truly meet the real you. Work choices may come from autopilot rather than conscious desire. Most of all, you can feel disconnected from your own inner world, like your life is happening, but you're slightly off to the side, watching instead of living. It can be tempting to see all of this as a defect, as something broken that needs to be erased. But there's another way to look at these trance states. What if every altered state you slip into is also information? Think of anger as an example. On the surface, it looks messy and dangerous, but often anger is a signal that a boundary has been crossed. In the same way, your numbness, your zoning out, your drifting mind may be signaling overload. Your system is saying, this is too much.
To process all at once, so I'm going to dim the lights for a while. Jealousy can be another example. It feels uncomfortable, even shameful. But beneath it, there's often desire, something you want, something that matters deeply. If jealousy pushes you into a trance of scrolling, fantasizing, or replaying scenes in your head, it's pointing to areas where your needs and longings are not being acknowledged. Numbness, that flat, foggy state, is especially important. Instead of seeing it as proof that you're empty or uncaring, you can view it as a sign of overload. Too many feelings, too much stimulation, too many contradictions, so your nervous system presses pause. The trance becomes a temporary shelter. This doesn't mean staying there forever is healthy, but it does mean that your altered states are not purely enemies. They are adaptations. They once helped you survive situations where you had little power and too many emotions. Instead of thinking, I need to fix myself and get rid of this, you can experiment with a different approach: integration. Integration means getting curious about these states. What do they protect? What do they try to manage? What do they reveal about what feels unsafe, too intense, or too important? Everyone has some version of altered consciousness. Maybe it's daydreaming while driving, losing time on your phone, disappearing into work, or spiraling into imagined conversations. No one solves this perfectly. The goal is not to never drift. The goal is to recognize when you're drifting, understand why, and gently guide yourself back when it's safe to be present. Your trance states are not proof that you're broken. They're proof that at some point, you did what you had to do to stay here. So how do you start working with trance states and altered consciousness in daily life? Here are some practices you can try, not to eliminate these states, but to build a conversation with them. 1. Name the fog. Why it helps? When you can notice and name what's happening, you create a tiny bit of space between you and the trance. That space is where choice lives. How to do it? Throughout the day, pause and ask, am I fully here right now? If the answer
is no, give your current state a simple name: foggy, checked out, on autopilot, far away. Imagine you're at your desk, staring at your screen, realizing you've reread the same sentence 5 times. Your shoulders are slumped, your jaw is tight, but you barely feel it. In that moment, instead of judging yourself, you quietly say inside, okay, I'm in the fog. What's difficult? It can feel scary to admit you're not fully present. You might worry, if I notice this, I'll fall apart, or people will find out something is wrong with me. The way through is to keep it private and gentle at first. You're not announcing it to anyone, you're just letting yourself see what's already true. 2. Track your triggers. Why it helps. Trance states rarely appear without a reason. They're often linked to specific situations, tones, topics, or people. How to do it? For 1 week, keep a small note on your phone labeled "When I Drift." Every time you catch yourself zoning out, write down where you are, who is around, what was happening just before you drifted. For example, meeting, boss raised voice slightly, I felt small, started staring at the table. Phone call with mom, she asked about my relationship in a critical tone, I went blank. What's difficult? You might feel silly or dramatic writing these small moments down. Part of you may say, it's not that serious. But when you see them collected, patterns appear. You begin to realize, oh, I drift most when I feel criticized, controlled, or trapped.
This clarity helps you understand what your nervous system is trying to escape. 3. Write what you didn't say. Why it helps. Trance states often block access to your words in the moment. Writing later lets you reconnect with the part of you that got quiet. How to do it? After a situation where you shut down or drifted away, take 10 to 15 minutes to journal. Start with the sentence, "In that moment, I actually wanted to say." Then keep going without editing. Let yourself write the raw, messy truth you didn't voice. Imagine you had a fight with your partner. They said, "You never listen," and you froze, went blank, nodded, and apologized. Later, in your journal you write, "In that moment, I actually wanted to say, I feel overwhelmed when you say never. I'm trying, but I get scared and shut down." What's difficult? You might feel ashamed, thinking, "It's too late," or "What's the point if I didn't say it then?" But the point is not to rewrite the past. It's to bring the silent part of you into the light now. Over time, this practice makes it easier to stay a little more present when similar situations show up again. 4. One small boundary. Why it helps. When you never set boundaries, trance states become your only way to protect yourself. A small boundary teaches your system that it has other options. How to do it? Choose one tiny, low-risk situation where you normally go on autopilot and slightly overgive. Maybe a coworker always calls you at the last minute. Maybe a friend assumes you're always available to listen for hours. Next time, try a small boundary like, "Hey, I can talk, but I only have 15 minutes." Or, "I'd like to answer this email tomorrow instead of tonight." Picture yourself on the couch at 10 p.m., exhausted, phone ringing with a friend who often vents for an hour. Your usual pattern is to answer in a kind of trance, listen, nod, then hang up feeling drained. This time you pause, feel your body, and say, "I care about you and I'm really tired today. Can we talk this weekend instead?" What's difficult? You may feel guilty, selfish, or afraid the other person will be upset. Your old pattern will push you toward disappearing into the conversation instead of speaking up. To move through this, remind yourself, each boundary is not about pushing people away. It's about allowing your real self to stay present. 5. 5 minutes of bare presence. Why it helps. Trance states often mix with constant distraction, screens, noise, multitasking. Short, simple solitude helps you rebuild the muscle of being with yourself. How to do it? Once a day, set a timer for 5 minutes. Turn off music, TV, and notifications. Sit or lie down in a comfortable position. Place one hand on your chest or stomach and notice the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, any small sensations, warmth, tingling, tightness. Your mind will
Wander. That's okay. Whenever you notice you've drifted, gently say, "Come back," and bring your attention to the sensation of your hand on your body. Imagine you're sitting on your bed, wanting to reach for your phone. Instead, you let your hand rest on your heart and feel the slight rise and fall of your chest. You notice a dull ache in your throat, a tightness in your jaw. For 5 minutes, you don't fix it. You just stay. What's difficult? These minutes can feel boring, uncomfortable, or even scary at first. You might think, "I don't have time for this," or feel the urge to escape. Starting small helps. You're not trying to have a perfect meditation practice, you're just visiting yourself for 5 honest minutes. 6. One level deeper, honesty. Why it helps. Trance states thrive in "I'm fine" territory. A little more honesty with safe people can pull you closer to real contact. How to do it? Choose one person you trust enough, a partner, close friend, or therapist. The next time they ask how you are, instead of saying, "I'm good," add one honest sentence. For example, "I'm okay, but I've been feeling like I'm watching my life from a distance lately." Or, "Work is fine, but I keep zoning out in meetings and I don't know why." Imagine sitting across from a friend at a coffee shop. They ask, "How have you been?" You feel the automatic, "all good," rise up. Instead, you take a breath and say, "I've been drifting a lot mentally. I'm here with you, but part of me keeps checking out." What's difficult? Vulnerability can feel dangerous, especially if earlier in life your experiences were dismissed or mocked. You might fear being misunderstood. To move through this, keep the honesty small and simple. You're not dumping everything, just letting one ray of truth come through. 7. Visit the younger you. Why it helps. Many trance patterns started when you were much younger.
Imagining that younger self helps you respond to your current states with compassion instead of shame. How to do it? Find a quiet moment. Close your eyes and picture yourself at an age when you remember zoning out a lot. Maybe 7, 10, or 14. See where you are. A bedroom, a classroom, a living room with a TV.
Buzzing in the corner. Notice what this younger you might be feeling. Confused? Scared? Lonely? Overwhelmed? Now imagine your current self sitting beside them. You don't need to fix anything. Just imagine saying, "Of course you needed to drift. This was a lot. I'm here with you." For instance, imagine a 9-year-old version of you at a family dinner, adults arguing. That younger you is staring at their plate, hearing voices blur, feeling their awareness float away. You, as the adult, gently place a hand on their shoulder and silently tell them, "You're not weak. You were doing your best." What's difficult? This practice can bring up emotion you didn't expect. Sadness, anger, tenderness. You might feel silly, like you're making things up, but the point is not to get the memory perfectly right. The point is to offer some of the care you didn't have back then, so your present-day system can relax a little more. As you work with these practices over time, life doesn't suddenly become clear and sharp in every moment, but something subtle shifts. You may start noticing the early signs of a trance state, your vision going slightly unfocused, your chest getting heavy, your thoughts becoming blurry. Instead of disappearing completely, you catch yourself halfway. You say, "Oh, here it is. The fog is arriving." And just that awareness makes the state feel less like a mysterious force and more like a pattern you can respond to. There's more ease and clarity. You still zone out sometimes, but you also have more moments where you feel, "I am actually here." You hear your own voice more clearly inside, not just the looping echoes of fear or old rules. You begin to notice that you have more than one choice in difficult situations. In relationships, some things shift. You might still shut down in conflict, but now you recognize it sooner and can say, "I'm starting to check out. Can we slow down?" Some relationships deepen because people finally get a chance to meet the real, present you. Others may naturally fade because they depended on you staying on autopilot, always agreeable, never fully there. New connections may appear with people who are drawn to your honesty and groundedness instead of your performance. Your fear of being found out softens little by little. When you live with hidden trance states, there can be a constant anxiety that someone will notice how distant you feel inside. As you understand and integrate these patterns, that fear loosens its grip. Seeing altered states as black and white, either fully awake or completely gone, you start to feel the gradual scale between them. You learn how to move along that scale with more awareness. Most importantly, you see that this work is ongoing. There is no final level where you're perfectly grounded every second of every day. There will always be moments when you slip into old patterns, zoning out, overthinking, escaping into screens. The difference is that now you know what's happening and you have tools to gently return. If you think back to that opening scene, the one where you come home and drift in your own kitchen, the picture changes a little now. Instead of automatically falling into the fog, maybe you notice the moment it begins. You place your keys down and feel how heavy your body is. You catch yourself staring at the counter and realize, "I'm starting to leave the room inside myself." With everything you've learned, you might do something different. You put your hand on your chest for one slow breath. You say, "I'm here. Today was a lot." Maybe you don't scroll right away. Maybe you sit down for 5 minutes of quiet presence, or you write one sentence in your journal. "Today I checked out in that meeting because I felt small." Trance states and altered consciousness are no longer nameless ghosts running your day. They become signals, messy, imperfect, but meaningful. They remind you where it still hurts, where you still feel powerless, where you still long for safety and connection. This is not a curse, it's part of being human. Your mind and body are doing what they learned to do to keep you safe. When you approach these states with curiosity instead of contempt, they can guide your growth. You don't have to wake up your whole life overnight.
You don't need to force constant happiness or perfect presence. You can start with small, daily choices. Naming the fog, tracking your triggers, saying one honest sentence, setting one small boundary, sitting with yourself for 5 simple minutes. Each of these acts is a way of saying, I'm willing to be here with my own life. Not just watching from the edges, but gradually moving closer to the center of your experience, breath by breath, moment by moment. Thank you for staying with this video until the end. If you'd like more gentle, practical content on psychology, self-awareness, and inner work, feel free to subscribe for future videos. And if you feel comfortable, share in the comments. Which part of this felt most familiar in your own life? Those moments of zoning out, the fog, or the small steps back into yourself?